This is Making It. Stories of success and achievement, inspiration and survival. Hosted by Mark and Paul Kinney and sponsored by More Financial Strategies, helping you make it through life. On today's show, Making It as a Bodyguard. Personal security for the rich and famous. And now here's Mark and Paul.
I think we got a great show, a great episode of Making It today.
I am so excited, I can't wait.
Making It as a Bodyguard. What would it be like?
Are we interviewing me today?
No, we're not.
Oh, okay.
We're not. The first thing that went through my mind was the Kevin Costner Whitney Houston movie. But we've got a great guest with us today, Bob Bond.
What a great name.
Well, if you're a bodyguard, don't you want that as your name?
Yes, Bond. Yes.
Yeah. We kid him about that, you'll hear. But Bob he's a former Marine, military police. He started out that way. I'm just going to give you a short background because this show could easily be 2 hours.
Easily.
He then transitioned into the California Highway Patrol. He was trained by the Secret Service because he did the protection detail.
Are we sure we're not interviewing me?
No, we're not.
Okay.
6 years he was with Lieutenant Governor Cruz Bustamante and was his private bodyguard. And since '86, he's done corporate and celebrities. He's a real thing. He's a bodyguard.
He is built like a bodyguard.
Yeah. I think that separates you and him. I think that's what it is. And later on, you don't want to miss the last part of the show. We put him to
Do not want to miss the last
the
part
Bodyguard BB Gun Challenge. So let's jump right into it. Here's our first segment with Bob Bond, Bodyguard.
Now, when we met a couple minutes ago, you probably looked at me, sized me up, and said, "Mark,
oh, he's a good candidate for this." Right?
You're probably a good candidate because of my muscular my physique.
Well,
did that go through your mind?
It's funny. I think your middle name must be Nostradamus because that's exactly what I was thinking.
That Mark, you missed your true calling, which is throwing yourself in front of bullets and just being there as a.
Did your name Bond have any
Yes.
kind of because?
James,
Yeah. Well, you know what? I don't think so, but
it sure works,
what's wrong
doesn't
with
it?
Yeah, what's wrong with it?
What is it about their persona that makes a good personal protection individual, a bodyguard? What is there about your makeup that...
Well, again, I've referred to this business as being a bit of theater. Perception is reality. Let's face it, you got to look the part.
Okay.
And if you don't look the part, one, you've got that going against you. And if someone does challenge you, you've already got to play catch up. So if you have the person that's dressed properly, they're fit, they've got that demeanor.
Okay, enough about me. Go ahead.
Yeah, that presence. You're so far ahead of the game.
But they have this look about them that you are not going to mess with this guy.
Right, and that's it. It's the deterrent effect. If we ever have to respond to a lethal approach or a near lethal approach or just an assault approach, we've missed something. Our whole goal is
Never to get it.
Never.
Never to have an incident happen. That means you're doing your job. It's when something happens where there's a failure, there's a break in the chain. Oh, what happened? You guys weren't doing
Well, and it's in all fairness to you guys, you can't prepare for every
possibility.
or can you?
You can. I have to politely
Paul,
say...
everybody knows that.
Gosh, what was I thinking?
I have no clue. Go ahead,
I have
Bob.
to politely disagree because, again, going back to the Secret Service, the U.S. Secret Service, they've had decades to practice their craft. And I mean practice. You have to start somewhere. There's been some huge mistakes made. What's happened is they've distilled all those mistakes, those errors down to almost a perfect science, the way that they protect the current president of the United States.
So what does that look like? What is it when you say that? What does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
Yeah, what are they doing before he even enters an arena where they have to protect him? What does that mean?
I'm gonna throw out a term here, insurance and assurance.
Okay.
If I'm going to insure something or someone, I also have to be able to give them assurance that I'm going to have their back. That a policy or an insurance is worthless unless you can provide help afterwards if something happens. Well, for us, we go back to that basic principle of inspect what you expect. We set the foundation for a client to come into an area, let's say a corporate client. Some of these people of high net worth have the resources, travel with enough people that it is like moving a head of state.
Really?
No private person in this world moves at the scope and scale and the cadence that the President of the United States moves.
But somebody like Bill Gates.
Well, Bill Gates, that's another person. Yet, Bill Gates has one of the finest protective services teams on the face of this planet. The reason that they're so good is because they pay attention to detail. They're seasoned veterans. They realize the value of being transparent. They create a very small footprint wherever they go. They tend to be off the record, under the radar.
It's called off the grid, Paul, for those
thank you.
off the grid.
So, and to make
And
all
you never see them.
you don't. So they're virtually invisible. They come in, and there's a lot of diplomacy that goes on here. Even though that they are protecting someone like Bill Gates, they have no law enforcement authority. They have to be diplomats and ambassadors for their client. They go in and they win friends and influence people. They seek to understand the environment that they're working in, and then they seek to be understood. So it's a cooperative effort.
If they travel into community, they are linking arms with law enforcement as quickly as possible.
Law enforcement, the facilities people where they stay at the hotels, the restaurants, the office buildings where they're going to be visiting, they set it all up again.
Wow, that's interesting.
So if Bill Gates, let's say, let's use him as an example. Sorry, Bill, if you're listening. But let's say he's going to go to San Francisco and he's going to speak somewhere and he's going to have he's going to go to some specific restaurant. Is there a team, kind of like the president has, who's going ahead and clearing that restaurant and checking out that hotel and making sure all that stuff is safe? There's guys doing that?
Absolutely. Not at the scope and scale of the Secret Service.
Right.
Again, yet they do have people that are going to be sent out to do what we call the advance. They have Bill Gates' schedule.
Have you done that?
Oh, yes. Yes, everybody at this level does that. You have to. Years ago, one of my favorite and best clients was in the back seat of the car with his CFO, who was not a big fan of protective services. He'd always been very critical of us, called us a drain on the economy of the business. Because we didn't sell anything, we didn't produce anything. Yet when we had a chance to talk to him, if he would let us articulate our opinion, we'd say, listen, you do business 24/7, 365 days a year because of us. All you have to do is put your finger through our belt loops, get in the car, and you just keep going at the speed of
business.
Yeah, that's it.
So you're driving.
So yes, so we drive, we do the advance work, we get the vehicles, we get the hotels. They never see the front of a hotel as far as going in to check in. They never have to check in. Everything is done. It's just so efficient. And that's what the big thing is about protective services at that level, is that the economy of their business is so efficient. And true, it costs to have that. Yet when this CFO asked this CEO, he said, what did we ever do without these guys? And he laughed. He says, we made a lot of U-turns.
Oh, wow.
So the confidence that it gives that CEO, because I've thought about that when the president, as an example, walks out into a public forum. I'm thinking, what if something happens? But they're up there with such confidence that they're looking and they're pointing and they're, because
They
of
know
you
you guys
guys,
have
you
done your
guys have
job.
covered their behinds, right? You've done.
Oh, exactly. Yet you can see where there have been mistakes made, and the person we just mentioned, Bill Gates, has been hit with a pie before. Willie Brown, when
Yeah.
he was mayor, was hit with a pie. And you can usually trace that back
To a bakery
yes, yes.
and the Boston cream that
Yeah.
okay.
You can usually trace that back to an error in the advance and how they set up the venue and the dais and access, all these
Has that
different
happened
things.
to you?
No, it hasn't. And not
A Twinkie. It wasn't a pie.
not to saying it could never happen.
Yeah.
And again, I'll go back to the U.S. Secret Service. They have gone out publicly and said, if you want to hit the U.S. president in the head with a bat, you'll probably do it once. Part of the deterrent procedures and the dividend of having a really strong deterrent and effective force with you is that the opportunity cost is too high for someone to engage you. They know that you're prepared, and that if you even try to make an approach, an assault approach, that you're going to pay the price. And especially if you are successful in making contact, the price is even going to be higher. So again, it's a bit of theater. People are looking and paying attention and watching how things are set up. They're paying attention to see how many men and women have earpieces in.
You've served on the, not the celebrity side, but on the wealthy side. Is that correct, or have you done both?
I've done a few celebrities years back. That's not my choice, really. I've accepted some of these assignments, and nothing against the celebrities. That's really not my cup of tea. My preference would be to work with corporate clients, private people of very high net worth.
So the people listening, because this just dawned on me, could you put a number on how many people are actually employed in this arena? And then the follow-up question is, at what level does a business person say, I probably need protective service?
We need to call Bob.
We need to, can you get Bond on the line? That's Bond, not James Bond. So how many people do you think that are actively employed, and at what level do they say, you know what, we're at a point where somebody could kidnap me and hold me for ransom?
It just depends on what the issues and events are in their life. It's very expensive, so unless you're a multimillionaire, you're not going to be able to afford a qualified protective services person or persons or a team. Now, the question was asked, how many people are working in this industry? Too many.
Oh, really? You know, it's interesting. I'll segue into something. I just looked up on the internet, Bodyguard schools, 9-day executive training, 7-day, 3-day executive. I'm thinking 2-day defensive evasive driving. And I'm thinking, can you really learn that in 2 days or 3 days?
Well, if your last name is Bond.
Or how does somebody become this today?
You have a list of schools. There are probably 3 that I would recommend.
Oh, there are? Oh, okay.
Yet, again, it depends on who the instructors are, what their backgrounds are, and how they present the school.
Have you gone to any of these?
Yes, 2.
You still do? Do you still do recurrent training?
No. Firearms training, driver's training, first aid, staying up on the newest ideas on mobile medicine. That's important to practice your craft in driving, because let's face it, you're transporting a client, you're driving all the time, so you better be good at what you do. You better be able to drive that car safely, smoothly, efficiently, effectively, and if the bell rings, as we call it, you better be able to get out of harm's way.
Has the bell rung ever in your career?
No.
You've never been in a situation where all of a sudden you were just scared, or like something's coming down, now I've got to kick in.
Oh, that's a whole different subject.
Okay.
I'm afraid of the dark and I run from fights. So that's.
But 2 questions. I'll follow up on that. In the public service side, when you were protecting people within public service, and then on the private side, in either case, has anything popped up that you just went, okay, my antenna's up, and then the hair on the back of my neck is up, and something's going on? We'll leave you with a cliffhanger. You'll have to come back in just a few seconds.
We are dastardly. There we go.
After the commercial break to hear the rest of the story. I thought it was interesting when he talked about theater, how the whole idea of how you present yourself, how important that is as a bodyguard. When we see guys, they look like bodyguards.
They do.
They're
not smiling.
They have that persona. Yeah.
And then about his idea about insurance versus assurance.
Yeah. How important that is. So come back. You'll hear the rest of the story in just a second.
We'll be back with Making It as a Bodyguard right after this from More Financial Strategies.
At More Financial Strategies, having a vision for your life is just as important as having a vision for your money. In our opinion, without a clear-cut vision, in fact, the Bible talks about it, without a vision, the people will perish. So when it comes to your retirement, if you don't have a clear-cut vision, not just for your money, but for your life, that retirement is going to be filled with worry, with anxiety, with fear and with great hesitation. Not knowing where you're headed, I love this, is like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. Can you imagine the drudgery each and every day? Nothing changes. And one day is not going to be any different than the day before. It's like a never-ending story. So our hope, our goal is to craft a vision for your retirement that goes beyond just your money. What is your life going to look like when you wake up on the first day of retirement? Let us help you craft that.
Thanks for sticking with us. We will not hold off on the payoff much longer because he's got some great stories. Like I say, he could have talked for 2 hours. We could have done 2 shows with Bob.
Well, about 30 minutes, we were wrestling on the grass. I was trying to pin him, and it was kind of tough.
Anyway, today's episode, Making It as a Bodyguard, continues. In the public service side, when you were protecting people within public service, and then on the private side, in either case, has anything popped up that you just went, okay, my antennas, the hair on the back of my neck is up and something's going on?
I can give you some examples, yes. You remember the controversial election when Gray Davis was being recalled?
Oh, okay.
Well, my client was the Lieutenant Governor, Cruz Bustamante. So in San Francisco, he's campaigning down in the Tenderloin, and we're moving along as a group.
You're in a car?
No, we're walking the sidewalk. He's shaking hands, pressing the flesh, and talking
and
to
you're
people.
Right there with him?
Oh, yes. And they actually are trying to hit him. And I'm just keeping him ahead of me, and I'm running the blockade there.
You're the only guy?
I was the only person with him, assigned to him. So...
Oh, my goodness.
So that's really tough because you have to watch out what's... You
got 360 and
domain awareness, situational awareness, keeping a cool head, and you get through that by already thinking about the what if. What am I going to do if this happens? What am I going to say? What am I not going to say? Sometimes saying nothing is more powerful than saying anything.
Do any of the people that you've had to protect, this is an off topic, are wearing like a bulletproof vest? Have they ever been in a venue where you've said, you know what, we're just unsure, put this on? That would spook me if I was that guy going, hold it, I thought I could try. Mark, put this on. Has that been in?
Once, yes. And again, if you go back to the U.S. Secret Service, sometimes POTUS wears garments that, it's just insurance. It's just, it's like, okay, it's a bit uncomfortable. It's a bit heavy. It could be a bit hot. Yet in this situation, they're introducing him or her into an environment where they say, you say that you have to be here. You say that you want us to take you here. Well, to do this properly, this is the level of protection we want you to have. So you're going to have to do this.
Is it many times that you're working with, if your team might be men and women?
Oh, yes.
Oh, okay.
Happens frequently, yeah.
And on the private side, has anything ever happened that you thought, something's amiss, your spidey sense?
Ooh, I like that, spidey sense.
Well,
That's probably in a manual somewhere.
yeah. No, again...
Because when I look at some of these websites, they'll say like Mexico, South America, Middle East. They're training you for specific areas.
Well, that's important to really have a great understanding and an idea of what environment you're going to be working in, who you're going to be working with to support you.
Were you ever worried that the people you were hiring may not be trustworthy?
That does cross your mind. It has to. Yet you work with people who have been recommended by people in your peer group that have been there before you. And it's like the Hells Angels rule. The Hells Angels...
Everybody knows that, but explain it to Paul.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Okay. Is that they don't really allow someone to be recruited into their organization unless the member in good standing has known that person for a long time.
How many years have you been doing private security?
Since 1986.
Wow.
And 32 years. I did that math in my head. 32 years. Is this full time?
I was going to say, you've had jobs where you've been like an 8-hour job a day for many years, right? On one particular, on a person?
Oh, yes. I've
family?
worked for one corporation for almost 8 years. But I've known them, I've worked with them since 1991 on and off. And when it came time for me to retire from the Highway Patrol, they asked me to come back and work full time, and I did. And this 8-hour day doesn't exist.
Really?
It doesn't exist.
24/7.
How many on the team? How many employed?
Again, it depends on the client. If you have a client that's single, that is not married, you could get by with 6 or 7. And now that's running it lean, because you've got to understand that people need days.
I was going to say 2.
Yeah.
You need
6 or
because
7.
you need days off. People get sick. You need to send people out to do an advance. You need people to stand post. You need someone to drive. That's
wow.
So again, it's expensive to do it right. And again,
the private family that you provided services for, how many on that team?
Well, let me say this.
And you can't give out names?
No.
Oh, doggone it.
No.
Okay,
Let me say this. We had all of the people we needed to do the job at a very high level and still give our operators time off. They have the resources. You could send your men and women out in advance. Sometimes you're going into time zones that's
so you're talking probably 20 or 30 or more people on a staff.
Oh yeah, easy.
And what would that cost? What does that cost a family? Are you talking millions of dollars a year?
Oh yes. You're looking at cost $5-6 million, depending on how you run the program. And then you have a budget. Of course, everybody has a budget. Yet, depending on how the corporation is doing and how they're expanding or shuffling the way they do business around the globe, and then their extracurricular travel that sometimes they commingle with business, you could be so far out of range of your budget that doesn't even make sense.
Are you on premise? Are you living there?
Oh yes. Yes, a lot of these have. No, well, we didn't live there, but there are a number of details around the United States and the world where the Protective Services staff does live on the estate.
Wow.
But not all of them.
Who's probably got the biggest detail as far as private? Any guess?
No, I would even hate to hazard a guess.
Yeah. It's obviously somebody of high net worth.
Gentlemen from Amazon or Facebook or those kinds of people.
Well, even then, just because they are the wealthiest, just because they're the most recognizable, doesn't really mean that their threat profile is any greater than someone else's. And again, money's no object, value always is. And if someone has spoken to these people of high net worth truthfully from my profession, the first thing they ask is why. Why do you think you need this? Why do you want this?
I've been getting these letters.
Let's talk about this. So we make every attempt to de-escalate immediately, to bring them down to earth and say, okay, let's talk about this.
Let's really assess the situation.
Right. And then look at what you want us to protect, your property, your properties, your aircraft, your vehicles, your family, your extended family, the way you get to and from work, the way you operate at work, especially for someone that's setting up a new environment. You bring security into the picture, and automatically the security seems to be like the enemy, because you're asking all these questions, you're probing, you're upsetting the apple cart.
If the shoe was on the other foot, would you like it? Would you like to have somebody providing you protective services, or having seen what you do for high net worth individuals, would you say, man, I hope I never make $40 million, because I wouldn't want to have to hire people and have somebody always protecting me and always worried about that?
No. And again, all of us have talked about it. Really, on a team, you think, hey, if I ever had this much money, if I ever got to this level, how would I handle it? And almost to a person, we say, one, we'd hire the right people. We would really make these people feel important in our life. You would foster a relationship with them where they're not your 15th best friend or your drinking buddy.
I was going to say, can you get too close?
Well, and that's a danger, and some people do that. In
the movie with
Kevin Costner and Whitney Houston.
So again, you go back to the structure of the detail. How many people do you really need, and how do you set the limits for this engagement? People pay to have men and women close to them, where we can, again, have great domain awareness, situational awareness, be trained properly, heads up attitude,
preempt
eyes
anything.
and ears open, and you're operating.
I just recently read, I think it was the day before yesterday, that Mark Zuckerberg, the boss at Facebook, over $8 million a year, and I thought that was low after listening to Bob, for security and travel. $8 million. I thought it might be more, but...
Well, a lot of people are probably more interested in me wrestling on the grass with Bob. We did arm wrestling. He beat me there. He did beat me wrestling on the. I did beat him rock, paper, scissors. Okay, so 1 out of 3 isn't bad.
None of that happened. None of that happened. Anyway, we've got more for you with Bob Bond, Bodyguard. More stories, including the strangest environment he's ever been in. So don't go away. There's more of Making It and Making It as a Bodyguard. So stay tuned.
You're listening to Making It with Mark and Paul Kinney, sponsored by More Financial Strategies.
And today's episode, Making It as a Bodyguard with Bob Bond, professional protective services guy. You know? I would think that'd be a fun job, although I would imagine it's got its...
Look, it's not as glamorous as everybody cracks. It looks like.
Yeah, I know. So I'm going to give you the chance, though. This is our segment we entitle Making It Through Life. Put your financial bodyguard hat on for a second.
Nice
here.
analogy.
Yes. And, what kind of advice do you give people if you're going to provide some protection for them as a more financial strategies guy?
Well, part of the process, we always talk about what we call the 5 perils of life. And if you can address the 5 perils of life, you've pretty much have covered all your bases. So, Paul, what are the 5 perils of life?
What are the 5 perils of life?
Great question. Number 1 would be death, die too soon, perhaps live too long. Number 2 would be a disability, something that you're still alive, but you're having to deal with maybe.
I'm writing these down.
Okay, very good. Number 3 would be retirement. Okay, that's a peril. If you haven't planned, that becomes a peril. Okay. The other one is long-term care. In some way, shape, or form, like 80% of the people over age 65 will have to address long-term care in some way, shape, or form. And then
that's not cheap.
No, it's not. And then number 5 is tax efficiency. I love that word, efficiency. It's when you understand taxes and you know where you are today, does it make more sense to pay the tax today and get it over with? So the financial side of being a financial bodyguard. I know people look at me and they're going to assume, number 1, I am a bodyguard. But then number 2, the financial end of it is, how do we protect what you've been able to accumulate against loss? Many of the instruments that we have address what is the number 1 risk for retirees, and that is longevity. Living too long.
You run out of money.
You do. Paul, there is somebody born today who will see their 150th birthday. And that means they're going
Whoa,
Yes,
hold that.
Yes,
Say that again.
There is somebody born today who will see their 150th birthday because of medical advances and technology.
Really?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we're not planning for our current clients to live at least to age 100, we are doing them a disservice. So think about it. They're going to live just as long in retirement, many of them, as they were in their working years. So how do we protect against that? How do we make sure they never, ever run out of money? So being a financial bodyguard, we are going to sit down with them and say, tell us your situation. Think about it. Just what Bob is talking about. Understanding your surroundings, knowing what's going on in your world.
Financial situational awareness.
Yes, financial situational awareness. And so we will help you craft that plan to cover the 5 perils of life. Now, people will initially say, isn't that going to be expensive? Well, let's look at the opposite side of that. If you don't have the 5 perils of life covered, it's going to be devastating. We will take that bullet for you.
Oh, this is
I know.
good. You're working on this.
Yeah. We will take that for you because we have the tools, we have the apparatuses. That's not a word. The apparati to make sure we've covered all possible scenarios. But in order for us to do that, you have to pick up the phone, you have to call us, you have to make an appointment, 296-4464, 296-4464. Who else will take that bullet for you?
Or morefs.com.
Yeah, our new website, you should check it out if you haven't. We've really upgraded it, lots of videos, calculators, but the most important thing is that you have a face-to-face with us. Look, you can, as I've said before, you can do this by yourself.
Go in and ask for the Bodyguard.
And when I walk out, you will know instantly that you've run into the right person.
Yeah. All right, let's go back to Bob Bond, though. He is the professional bodyguard, and hear more of his great stories here on making it as a bodyguard. Do you have a team that you just, okay, I got this job. Let
me call.
Let me call. And do you have a list of guys that
Absolutely.
you just...
Bob, tell him right now that I'm on that list.
I signed an NDA.
Yeah. Good comeback, Bob. Yeah. So, you know who you'd call.
Absolutely. And this one person that's primary that is probably one of the greatest guys I've ever met in this business. I met him in Istanbul almost 9 years ago. My first time in Istanbul. I was at the airport. I got there before him. He's flying in from the United Kingdom. I had called one of our support companies to ask specifically for a person to meet me there. Keeping in mind, again, it was my first time to Istanbul. So I said, I want someone that's worked here before, that's comfortable in this environment, that speaks the language, and is comfortable driving here. I normally drive wherever I go, yet the groundwork that I had done before, everybody recommended, don't drive there. Just give it a break this time. So we'd send each other our photos. I'm sitting down in this coffee area.
Smoky field. Fan going on overhead, lady at the piano.
Player going, yeah. That's Casablanca, Mark.
Yeah.
Not Istanbul, Casablanca.
I know.
Yeah. Here comes Mick. His name is Mick James. He's a Brit. And he comes walking in and we shake hands, we meet, and get him some coffee. I said, you happy to be back? He goes, back? Bloody hell, I've never been here.
And you went, what?
I said, you've never worked here. You've never been here. He goes, no. I said,
never driven here.
That means you've never driven here. That's two, right? I said, do you speak the language?
No.
It was Bob. He says, I speak a bit of Russian. I said, okay.
Oh, my goodness.
So I told him what I had asked for, descriptively and prescriptively. Mick finishes his coffee. He gets up, he grabs his bag. He goes, Bob, he says, I'll excuse myself. He says, I'm sorry. He says, you need to sort this out. And he says, I would love to work with you, but he says, you obviously are looking for someone else. Well, I could tell just by the way we got along and chit-chatting. I said, Mick, please sit down. I said, you want a beer? He said, yes. So 2 beers. We've worked together ever since. The trip went off great because we both were in a position where we had to rely on one another.
And like thinking.
Right. We had been around the block more than once, and it worked out.
Not in Istanbul, though.
No.
Now you could say you've been to Istanbul.
And so we made numerous trips there together. And again, it's just on who you partner up with and pair with that has that experience that you need and the attitude, the desire to just make it work.
What's the strangest environment you've been in?
It would have been
Probably this interview.
Right off the bat, this would qualify as a strong second.
Thank you, Bob.
Lusaka in Africa. It was a very strange environment.
How long were you there?
9 days.
Private security?
Yes. Yeah, very strange environment.
In what way?
Why? Why were you there?
With a client that wanted to go there and do some humanitarian work.
Okay.
And so it's very austere in a number of ways, particularly so for the people that live there. Just abject poverty.
And then
The
going to
street crime.
opulence in your room?
Right. And the street crime, seeing how people lived. And yeah, it's just.
Did you feel guilty? A little bit?
Well, Mick was with me on that one too. And
How many in the detail?
3.
3.
Yeah.
How did your client respond to this? Did you see the emotion of male or female?
Oh, female. And she was affected to a high degree by it in a most humanitarian way.
Now, in a situation like that, there's 3 people on detail. Is there somebody outside her door guarding it?
No.
No. Okay.
We have cameras that we use that are portable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and when we're in our rooms, we keep our doors open. Anybody on the protective services staff that works with us, unless it's end of night, you keep that door open so you can hear what's going on in the hallway and your station.
So in a hotel room, you'd leave your door open?
Oh yeah, and you get some strange looks. People walk by and and they look at you kind of funny. Well, that's fine. But
so cameras, you have portable cameras that you
Yes.
use. What other stuff do you have that?
well, radio that the client has.
Like a pen that turns into a...
They always have a radio. They have a flashlight. They have stuff to survive a fire if there's a hotel fire. There's so many things that we do for them that they never use, or hopefully they never have to use. Yet again, that goes to that level of being prepared and giving.
What
them-
about you? You'd mentioned medical training and stuff like that. When you go, do you always have a bag that's
Yes,
specific?
and it's mobile medicine. Keep in mind that none of us are doctors.
Yeah.
Yet you do have the basics and some of the stuff that people wouldn't think of. If you're protecting a client that has crowns on their teeth, that you bring the cement to put a crown back on if they lose a crown.
Oh, interesting.
You have Anbesol, something that can be used to desensitize their mouth if they're having a toothache. You have basic
So you really
meds.
got to get to know these people.
Well, yes, and you have bobby pins, you have straight pins, you have batteries, you have extra chargers for their phone, you have all this stuff which people say, well, that doesn't have anything to do with protection. Well,
Peace of mind.
if the client has to go somewhere
yeah.
and buy it,
Yeah.
get out of that environment, and you've got it right with you, that's less travel, less exposure. So, and again, over the years, you learn what people typically ask for. Collar stays. It's so simple.
Cufflinks. Bob, did you bring your cufflinks?
Well, yeah, and sometimes I go, I'm not going to wear those. Well, that's all I have.
Sorry, Bob.
Yeah.
Next time, can you bring some a little more bigger selection?
I want to go back to the gal that was the humanitarian. So did you interact with her saying, almost getting personal, like, what are you going to do? How did this impact you?
Or is there a wall? Is there this imaginary wall between you and the client?
Well, again, I tend to be. I've had great relationships with clients. The closest I've ever been with a client would have been the lieutenant governor. I was with him for almost 6 years. Traveled all over the world with him as well. Yet he never once invited me into his house for spaghetti dinner. I did have a glass of wine with him on occasion. Yet there was that line, and that's the line that should be there, because I'm not his best
Confidant.
friend.
Yeah.
Although we talked openly about any number of sensitive issues, again, once that trust is built, that old adage that familiarity breeds contempt. And for me, I've always called my clients by their proper title, Mr. or Mrs. whatever. The governor, Governor Wilson, Lieutenant Governor. It's like a lieutenant colonel in the military. You would normally call him colonel, just out of respect. So that way, if the bell rings and I say move, you need to move. And I said, what I'm going to do then, I'm going to call you by your first name, so you'll know that it's
serious.
It's live. It's serious. So that was my way of doing
That's
it.
interesting.
Yes, that's very
That's
good.
interesting, because then he'd
Because you
Bob's
never
never called me that
right.
before.
You never call them by their first name, ever.
Well, are you ready for the Bodyguard BB gun challenge?
I am ready to see him get ready.
Well, and it's interesting you say that. Yes, I am. And this is something that we talk about a lot, is that we carry firearms within the U.S. quite frequently, almost all the time. Yet when we go internationally, you can't. So
that was going to be one of my questions.
So either you hire someone locally that has the ability to carry a firearm and you vetted them out.
So they're not pulling it on you.
Well, and they're qualified, right?
Yeah.
So yet when we come back, we go, you can debate this all day long, is that, again, if you have to pull a weapon, if you have to really start defending your client, you've probably missed something that has been building up to that point. It's like a catastrophic airline crash. It happens usually because of a lot of little things that added up together to make the plane crash.
Yeah. It's remarkable. It's absolutely profound.
What is?
How similar our lives are. Bob and me. We're separated at birth.
You think you're like on the A team? You're the first number he calls. No, don't you wish?
Yes.
Yeah. Interesting character, Mick, though, don't you think?
Right out of the movies.
It truly is. It truly is. Hey, don't forget, coming up in just a second, the Bodyguard BB Gun Challenge.
Oh, you do not want to miss that.
You're listening to Making It as a Bodyguard. We'll be back with our final segment right after this message from More Financial Strategies.
I am convinced that most people are best served and better served when they are working with a financial professional. So when you go in and you interview these individuals for the first time, you have to ask yourself, do you like them? Do you trust them? Can you feel and sense their passion for wanting to help you? Do they share your beliefs and your convictions? The only way you're going to know that is if you pick up the phone and give us a call at 296-4464. Again, 296-4464, or visit us on the web at morefs.com.
We're back with Making It as a Bodyguard, and we are now at a secret. Is this a Black Ops kind of a thing?
It is. It's undisclosed location. If we had to reveal where we were, then
our lives would be in jeopardy.
They would be.
Yes.
And Bob would have to become our personal bodyguards.
That's right. But it's time for the Bodyguard BB Gun Challenge, and he's got more stories before and after that we think you'll enjoy, and maybe it'll, I don't know, will it encourage you or discourage you from making it a bodyguard your profession?
Okay, just think about how many of us, we look at different professions and we say, what if, could I, should I have? We've all got that rear view mirror. So don't let this discourage you, but gosh darn, if you've got something that's been gnawing at you, itching at you, going, maybe I should try that. Maybe is it too late in my life to change careers or do something different? Paul, you know this. Yeah. How many people are stuck in jobs that they hate? We know Bob loves his job.
Yeah.
So find something that you love to do, or do what you love. And I think that's important.
Yeah. And it may be a bodyguard.
A whole nother topic, drones. Is that entering into what you guys are doing?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely. Employing them. One estate, this is one example. A major estate with a major entry where all guests and all special function guests come through and IDs are checked and all that. And the drone flies around is there. After the first month of employing that, the word that we get from the street is, oh my gosh, you guys have drones that you're watching. The other side of it is that you're with a client on their big yacht, their big boat, and drones are flying over. You know, you don't know what they're there for. They could be trying to crash into the boat. Well, you've heard of the wrist rocket.
No.
You take them out.
Slingshot?
Yeah.
With marbles?
You have to be pretty good.
Well,
he's Bob Bond.
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you, Paul. I'm sorry.
Well, it's pretty amazing how effective those can be. And then the people that are operating it can see what you're doing.
And they run.
Oh, they take that drone out of there because they don't want to lose a drone. But it's like...
Have you gotten one?
No.
You haven't?
No. But it's all, again, it's theater.
What
it's
a game.
It's theater. Oh, my goodness.
Okay, here's
we're in
the
a little theater right now.
Okay, Mark, I need you to go over and set those 3 or 4 RC cola cans up.
So you still want me to shoot at him while he's setting them
No,
up?
no. He's downrange. He's dead. Now, I got a question. Do you, when you're on duty, do you always carry?
Yes. In America.
In America.
Yes, always.
But not when you're traveling.
I've taken weapons to Mexico twice, received permission from the U.S. government and obviously the government of Mexico to do it. Yet the process is pretty laborious, and when you get there, believe it or not, the weapon has to be disassembled when you bring it in. They count every piece of ammo you have, and you're limited to how much ammo you can bring in. When you leave, they do the same thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bob is delaying the inevitable right here, which is he going to be able to beat my record?
He's probably going to be able to just like instinctively pick it up and go boom, 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 and it's going to be amazing
So
how...
what do you want me to do here?
I just want you to knock the 8 cans over.
Yeah, can we just see this?
Yeah, 8. Oh, he missed one. Oh, he
Got
got that one.
Oh, no, hold on, stop.
Wait,
He shot 2 of them. Well, that's not bad.
He shot 2 with the same BB.
Well,
Oh, my goodness.
That was pretty impressive.
That-
For somebody who's never
let's
picked
set
up
him
that
back up
weapon.
for who?
well, I just want to show you something.
Oh, okay.
My focus is going to be on the person ahead of me, right?
Right.
And for me to come up and point and shoot, you can do that rather quickly. But if I come up and I get close enough,
I think it's out of beat.
It might be.
yeah. So, it is. So you can see, you've practiced enough. You can come up here and shoot
Right from your
right
waist.
from the waist. Yeah, it's easy. And then, of course, you're advancing, and the closer you get, the easier it is to hit the target. And my objective here is to close with them, get the weapon from them, disable them, hopefully detain them. Or if I'm with a client, I'm working one-on-one, you can see now how complicated it is. If I have to start returning fire and I'm working with a client,
Wow, your attention is diverted to because
yeah.
you're worried about the
So,
client. And
again, neutralize them as quickly as possible. And in that case, then I'm going to take off with my client. And I'm going to get as big as possible in front of my client. When you see someone doing this,
they're crouching down.
they're
and
not protecting their client. So you want to get bigger when you're protecting your client.
What happened in the Ronald Reagan thing? What happened there? Remember where he was shot by?
Yeah, if you pay attention to the footage, when he leaves the Hilton Hotel, he's got his close protection people with him, and Hinckley is there behind the barricade. You've got 2 uniformed officers there. You can see it on YouTube. Reagan's making his way to the limo, and he's waving like he always did. He just is that type of guy, right? Well, you can see the uniformed officers, and you can see Hinckley. Instead of keeping their back turned towards the president, which they should have done, their job is to stand on the other side of the barricade, facing the people, and watch them. There's also a Secret Service agent watching them. They're turning around repeatedly and looking at the president. That's not their job. And if you watch it, when they're turning around, Hinckley takes that opportunity to fire. If they had simply stayed focused and watched, I don't think Hinckley would have taken that shot that day.
Let's go out to your car and see if there's any advice you want to give us. So, are there things that the average person, somebody like Mark, let's talk about average, the average person should know about or can learn from somebody like you about the simple things like driving the car? Because we do it all the time. We don't even think about it. But when you look at a car and you get in the car, what are you thinking?
Well, it's a mobile office. It's a platform for you to begin and end your day. So having the proper equipment on board for your client, and every client is different. The newspaper, the water, and as trivial as it may seem, even the coffee, that you get everything set up beforehand, right? Because once they get in the car, it's like, let's go.
And for the average person, they probably don't think to necessarily have everything that they should have in their own car.
No,
not necessarily an office, but
the phone chargers that they should have in the car, and you know what type of phone they have. You even have batteries. If it's that type of a phone where you could have an extra battery, you even have a spare phone in case something happens to their phone. But fluid levels, tire pressure, brakes. You drive these cars all the time, and
are you checking those?
Yes, we are.
How often do you practice driving?
every day.
Well, but I mean,
No, really every day. And I'm not trying to be a smart aleck, but I've gone to some of the best driving schools in the
The
world.
Bob Bondurant?
No. Twice to the Mercedes-Benz Specialized Driving School, BSR.
can you drive backwards really fast?
Yeah. And I taught high-speed driving at the Highway Patrol Academy, so
You've never had to do evasive driving?
no.
Okay.
No. Well, no.
However-
in Israel, in Bethlehem, I was there doing an advance with Mick again, and again, it was one of those deals where they start looking at you in the car,
And you got a funny feeling.
and they just are focused, and people start getting on their cell phones, and you can see things happening. So I'd been there before, Mick had not. And I said, Mick, we need to leave here. We need to get out of here. This is a different Bethlehem than it was a year ago. So we had to really drive fast and get out of there. And it worked out fine.
Well, Paul, there you have it. You know, I did slip Bob my phone number.
Oh,
Yeah, just
in hopes.
Well,
In hopes.
in
You're
case
dreaming.
in case he needed a stand-in, somebody that he could trust, count on. I got his
Oh, you are
back.
taller than him.
I am, and
You are
so
taller.
anyway, so
You know what? Let me give him a plug real quick. If you want to get a hold of Bob, CameronJamesLimited.com. That's his
Ooh.
website. Cameron James Limited, all spelled out, no LTD. CameronJamesLimited.com. If you think you need Bob to be your bodyguard, he can be your man.
Or you can reach me at More
No.
Financial Strategies.
Yes, you can.
296
But for entirely different purposes.
No, I'm talking about a bodyguard.
A financial bodyguard.
Oh, I guess I could do that too.
Yeah, give the phone number again.
Yeah, 296-4464, 296-4464. I'm a double. I can double as
Yeah.
both.
Or morefs.com, and it's MOOREFS
Yes.
for financialstrategies.com.
If we haven't convinced you that we can be your personal bodyguard, be it financially or realistically, we haven't done our job on the show.
Well, I don't know if we've convinced anybody that we could be their bodyguard, but we hope you enjoyed this edition of Making It and Making It as a Bodyguard.
You've been listening to Making It with Mark and Paul Kinney, brought to you by More Financial Strategies. The information covered today is designed to provide general information on the subjects covered. It is not, however, intended to provide specific legal or tax advice. It can't be used to avoid tax penalties or to promote, market, or recommend any tax plan or arrangement. You're encouraged to consult your tax attorney or advisor. By contacting us, you may be provided information regarding the purchases of insurance products, including annuities. Guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurer. Riders may be available for additional cost. Product and features may vary from state to state. For full details on how life insurance works, including fees, expenses, and costs, contact our office at 296-4464. Mark Kinney is a financial professional licensed in the state of Arizona.